People see me as the man who never stops. Meetings, deadlines, decisions, projects, and foundations. But there came a day when I quietly walked out of a conference room and didn't return. No announcement, no emails, no assistant following behind. I simply left, and that moment changed everything for me. It was a bright afternoon in Geneva. We had been discussing global health strategies, complicated charts, statistics, and plans that seemed to stretch decades into the future. Everyone in the room spoke with conviction, and yet, something felt off. As one of the experts explained a new model on the screen, my eyes drifted toward the large window overlooking the street. Outside, I saw a young boy trying to sell bottled water to passers-by. He looked tired but determined, wiping sweat from his forehead, calling out to people who mostly ignored him. Something inside me paused. I couldn't hear the room anymore. I excused myself quietly, ignoring the puzzled looks from those still talking. As I walked out of the building, I realized how often I'd been surrounded by numbers but forgotten the faces behind them. I found myself standing across the street from that same boy. He was no older than 12. His shoes were torn, his voice hoarse, but when I offered to buy a bottle, his eyes lit up. He smiled, saying, "Thank you, sir. You're my first customer today." I asked him softly, "Why aren't you in school?" He shrugged. "My mother's sick. I have to help." His voice was calm, not bitter, not ashamed, just factual. As if life had trained him to accept struggle without complaint. I stood there speechless, holding that bottle of water like it was something sacred. He looked at me curiously. "You look sad, sir." I smiled faintly. "Just thinking," I replied. "About what?" he asked. I hesitated. About how sometimes, even when we have everything, we still forget what matters most. For the next few minutes, I just listened to him, to the noise of the street, to the heartbeat of life that doesn't care about titles or balance sheets. I gave him some money and told him it was for his mother's medicine. He looked at the notes, then back at me, unsure if it was real. "Is this really for me?" he asked. I nodded. He whispered a quiet thank you, his voice trembling. Then he said something I'll never forget. "Sir, I'll remember this day forever, not because of the money, but because you looked at me like a person." That single line hit harder than any success I've ever had. Because he was right, too often, we look through people, not at them. I walked back into the building an hour later. My team looked worried, they thought I'd left because I was upset. I simply said, I needed to see something real. I didn't elaborate. Some of them smiled awkwardly, not understanding. But that's okay, not everything in life needs to be explained. That evening, as my plane took off, I looked out the window and thought about how disconnected success can make us if we're not careful. We build systems to help people, yet sometimes forget to truly see them. We plan futures, but miss the human moments happening right now. I realized then that purpose doesn't always come from grand missions or massive projects. Sometimes it's as small as listening to one person's story, offering a hand, or simply seeing someone the world has forgotten. I never told anyone his name. I never mentioned the incident publicly. But that day changed something in me. Since then, I make it a point to step out, to walk in streets where nobody recognizes me, to talk to people with no cameras around. To remind myself that impact isn't only made in boardrooms, it's made in moments. When I look back on my life, that afternoon in Geneva won't appear in any biography or documentary, but for me, it was the moment I remembered why I started doing what I do in the first place. Sometimes, walking away doesn't mean giving up. It means walking towards something real.